Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. Like the Founding Fathers, I'm British by birth, but American by choice. And I'm welcoming you to episode 239 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Well, 239, that's a lot of episodes. We've been going quite a while. And I intend to continue on for a while yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. The elections are coming up in the next 2 weeks. And to be frank, I still haven't heard any good ideas from the GOP. They need to come to us with some clear, easy steps that we can take on restoring this country. It isn't just about showing how bad the regressives are. It's also about showing what positive plans the GOP has for us and setting our country on the right track. Without that, the GOP will never be as successful as they should be. And until they do that, they do not deserve to be as successful as they could be. So we'll wait and see what happens. I have to say, one of the things I do like are the adverts the commercials that have been on TV recently for the NRA, where they are just saying some very clear, simple messages, and in a way not really saying join us. That does come in at the end, but really just saying here's what we want to do for the country, and we are the good guys, we're not the bad guys. And I think that's great. Like I said, just a plain, clear, simple message. Anyway, we've got a bunch of great stuff for you tonight, lots of different topics. For those of you that are listening live, please do join us in the chat room. I see that Paul has already arrived. Good evening, Paul. Nice to see you there. Hopefully Rex will be joining us shortly as well, another regular listener. But anyone else who's listening live, just head on over to the chat room. Just say you're there. You don't have to participate, but it's nice to know who all's joining us. And let me start off tonight. I think I'm going to start with something from across the pond. Regular listeners will know one of the things I like to do every so often is sort of hold up as an example strange things that are happening on the other side of the ocean. Could be in the UK, could be in other parts of Europe. Because, as you know, the regressives over here look to the Euro-socialist side of the Atlantic as being the Valhalla, and they're trying to copy everything that goes on there. Well, not everything, and I'll get to that later as well. But in this case, this is the sort of thing that we can expect to be happening, and I call it another example of political correctness gone wild, with the little subtitle, Coming to a Country Near You Soon. Yes, folks, you can expect to see this sort of insanity taking place over here. And what is this specific situation? A mother in Britain was ordered by a school to declare her 7-year-old son guilty of racism. The UK Daily Mail reported that 29-year-old Haley White was told to sign a form admitting that her son, Elliot Dearlove, is a racist after an incident that occurred at school. So what was the reason for this demand? The boy had asked a classmate, a 5-year-old classmate, he's 7 years old, he'd asked a 5-year-old classmate, "Are you brown because you come from Africa?" Just think about that, folks. Are you brown because you come from Africa? Is that racist? That's just inquisitive. Anyway, according to the Daily Mail, Ms. White had received a phone call last month to say that her son had been at the center of a racist incident, and she was summoned to the school to meet with her son, his teacher, and the deputy head of the Griffin Primary School in Hull, or as they say in Yorkshire, Hull. Primary school there is pretty much equivalent to an elementary school, right? K through 6. When she told the reporter when she arrived at the school and asked Elliot what happened, he became extremely upset. Of course, wouldn't you? All this fuss and being told that he was a racist. He kept saying to me, "I was just asking a question. I didn't mean it to be nasty." And he was extremely distressed by it all. Now, White was then told to read the school rules, which includes a zero-tolerance policy on racism. But this wasn't racist. I mean, this is just, as I said, PC gone wild. And so she was told she would have to sign a form acknowledging my son had made a racist remark, which would be submitted to the local education authority for further investigation. Well, she quite rightly said she refused to sign it and said her son was simply being inquisitive. And hats off to the lady for standing up and having some backbone, which is a lot more than a lot of people in this country have. He always likes to ask questions, she said, but that doesn't make him a racist. Unfortunately, in these trying times, it does. And the local city council is actually doubling down on this and standing behind the school. There is a statutory duty to report any incident that is perceived to be racist by the victim or any other person, a council spokesman said in a statement. So note there, victim or any other person. So even if the victim doesn't feel they're a victim, anybody else who wants to can stick their nose in other people's business and turn a poor little 7-year-old boy into brand him as a racist. This is absolutely disgusting. I am so disgusted at my mother country. This is just absolutely crazy, idiotic. And folks, if this ever reaches here, we need to get up and stamp it out immediately. Now, the victim, in actual fact, is not alleging racism, and neither is his mother. The mother denied her son was the victim of racial abuse. She said the race thing has come from school. It is not the case that I said that Elliot was racist, she added. The boy's mother also apologized to me and my son, and I accepted the apology, and that was the end of the matter as far as I'm concerned. She knew, quite rightly, that she felt that he was just being inquisitive, and she considered the matter dealt with. But the busybodies in school, the regressives, because that's what they are, the busybodies there had to take this further and just absolutely denigrate this boy and really make a mess of his life, because that's kind of a thing that will follow him everywhere. The local MP says, "It seems the matter has been taken out of all proportion and common sense seems to have gone completely out of the window." Well, thank you for saying that, Mr. MP. Now, poor Elliot, though, is not the only one. In the UK, the Daily Mail added, thousands of children were branded racist or homophobic following playground incidents. Actually, 20,000 pupils aged 11 or younger were put on record for so-called hate crimes. Example, using the word Gaylord, which just happens to be a male given name, but that brands them as a homophobe. Now, the writer there said, and we are supposed to believe that educators, not parents, know what's best for children. Poppycock. Okay, let's. I'm going to say hi to Rex, who has indeed joined us. Hope you're doing well, Rex. You said good evening from Vegas, so you still haven't made your escape from Sin City, I see. Looking forward to hearing about your new book. And for my other listeners, who knows, Edward has a series of very good books. I will try and get him interviewed. Right now on Spreaker, I don't have the ability to take phone calls like I used to do, but I'm going to try and set something up so that I will do phone interviews offline and then bring it in and broadcast it on the show. It's not quite as much fun as having it live, and there won't be the ability for people to react in the chat room exactly, at least not to get reactions from Rex or any other author, but it's the best I can do for the moment. I am still looking for an opportunity to get the live dial-in set up, but there's going to be a little bit of work associated with that. So Rex, let me know when the book comes out, and I'd love to get that interview set up. And I'm also trying to get something up in the next few weeks with another favorite author of mine. He's been on a couple of times, Paul Skousen from Utah, and he's got a new book coming out, and I'm going to be looking at that. His past ones have been sort of non-fiction, but the one we're going to be discussing is actually a novel, if I understand correctly. So we'll see about that. So let's move on to a new topic. And the new topic is going to be my weekly commentary. We will have to split it up for commercials, but there's and I've got a number of topics for the weekly commentary. And I'm going to start off. I'm going to surprise folks because there are a lot of serious things going on, Ebola and the elections coming up, and I'm not actually going to. I'm not going to do anything on that. I'm going to tackle, though, another very kind of hot topic, not in terms of perhaps being very much at the forefront of the news, but it tends to be very controversial, very divisive when it comes up. And I saw some things that people are trying to stir it up again. I think it's being used as a topic to basically get out the Democrat vote, and so this is coming up and perhaps muddying the water and preventing us a little bit from focusing on really what's wrong with this country, because in some ways nothing wrong with gay marriage. And I know I have a number of conservative listeners who are going to say, oh well, let me turn it around and let me phrase that slightly different. Nothing wrong with gay partnerships. Yes, the Bible says that is not right, but the Bible also says all sinners will be forgiven. And if they want to sin, people do all sorts of sins. Adultery, is adultery any worse than living together as gay people? So gay partnerships is one thing. However, gay marriage is something else. And one of the things that I heard, it seems that some clergy, even here in America, and I know this happens in the UK as well, I think I've mentioned that before now, but here in America, some clergy are being threatened with fines and or jail time if they refuse to marry same-sex couples. Think about that. If they refuse to marry same-sex couples. Now, what seems to be lost in this whole discussion is the Constitution. And in my opinion, there are two specific parts of the Constitution, actually, two amendments that should be taken into account in this discussion. The one that gets forgotten a lot, but to me is the most obvious one, is the First Amendment, and particularly the text in the First Amendment. And I'm going to just select that part of the text. Right, I'm going to abridge it slightly for its context, so I'm not going to read the whole First Amendment. But basically, Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. That is the First Amendment. The second one that gets thrown at us by the regressive activists, and especially the activist judges, is the 14th Amendment, where they quote the Equal Protection Clause that's in there. Now, the wording of the amendment, before we start discussing it, let's get the exact words, and I am going to abridge it slightly for context. Just take what I think is applicable here, and I think what I've taken out doesn't change the meaning by any means. So, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And I think it's that last phrase, actually, right? Nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And let me just go back before we go into discussing this. Interesting to note there that in this 14th Amendment, the phrase that came there in the middle, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Life, liberty, or property. Remember that in the Declaration of Independence, that phrase was actually changed to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's for reasons which I have discussed before. I know in my broadcast round about July 4th, and that's always interesting part that I like to bring up there. But it's interesting that in the Constitution here we do actually have what it was supposed to be in the original Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, or property. Anyway, that was a small sidestep there, and as we took that sidestep, I see that time has come for our first commercial. So we'll continue with this topic after this break, and we'll see you shortly. If I can get the break up there.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Attention. Have you been in a serious automobile accident? Then you need to call our attorneys now. We specialize in helping our clients get compensated for major auto injuries. If you've been in any type of car or motorcycle accident and you've been seriously injured, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Our attorneys have recovered millions and millions of dollars for injured clients. There are no out-of-pocket costs to you ever. We only receive a fee when we win your case. We are available 24/7. If you've been in an accident and been seriously injured, make this free call to our attorneys now. Call the Personal Injury Center at 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. That's 800-634-1315. This ad is paid for by participating member law firms. We are not an attorney referral service. Representation may not be available in your state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. We're into my weekly commentary, and we're talking about gay marriage, because that's the term everybody uses. I wanted to call it gay partnerships. And we were talking about how everybody seems to forget about the Constitution or twist the Constitution to actually have it answer to what they want it to do. And we were talking about the 14th Amendment, where everybody quotes what they call the Equal Protection Clause. And just to remind you, as I said, it was nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, equal protection of the laws. And, of course, I thought, so we'll come back to that one, though, because I think there's something more important here. I think the First Amendment is much more important, because the First Amendment actually specifies Congress shall not, right? Congress shall not. And I know I've said this before in shows. The ACLU and the regressives and all their lackeys always try to apply this amendment and the other part of the First Amendment, that no government, not just Congress, but also state and local, may touch anything religious, right? The Ten Commandments, whatever. Absolutely no religious thing in anything government, whether it's state, local, or federal. Well, if that's true, then any jurisdiction that tries to force clergy to do something against their faith is also acting unconstitutionally, because, as I said before, Congress, or let's convert that to what the ACLU and the regressives say, government shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion, and clergy refusing to marry same-sex couples are exercising their religion. It is part of their religion, right? Are we going to allow Muslims to come in here and carry out honor killings because it's part of their religion and not find them guilty of murder? That's the same thing. Sounds very extreme, but that's exactly the same thing. Are we going to allow, and I spoke about this thing last week, allow Houston to, the city of Houston, to try and suppress or strong-arm the clergy about their sermons, again, where they're speaking out against something that, again, they do not believe in and they feel is against their religion. And this is the fact that basically transgender and anybody can use any restroom. Nobody can be prevented from doing anything like that. And I mean, there are other issues around that, but it's also a religious thing. So I think just on the First Amendment alone, just looking at that, I say, no, you cannot do that. You cannot force clergy to marry someone. Now, and this has nothing to do with whether you agree or disagree with gay marriage or gay partnerships, right? And so you can't force people to do something against their religion, and that should even extend to private individuals like cake bakers, photographers who are being sued. Companies, Hobby Lobby is a good example. Why should they be forced to do something that is against their religious beliefs? So let's go back to the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. where it states equal protection of the laws. So which laws are we talking about? Given that the 14th Amendment is referring to laws that are made, I would say, under the Constitution, there's nothing in the Constitution that's relevant to marriage. So I guess they must be talking about actually state and local laws. It can't be anything constitutional. But if it's state and local laws, we just saw the Constitution says Congress may not. So I would derive from that state and local can make things that are at odds. Well, I wouldn't say at odds, that are different from the Constitution, just as long as they're not at odds with the Constitution. But if the Constitution says nothing about marriage, how can it be unconstitutional to, at a state or even a local level, but in most cases it's been a state level, to define what you think marriage is? But activist judges, left, right, and centre, insist on overturning the laws where we, the people, have taken steps and have chosen to exclude gay marriage. These activist judges call these laws unconstitutional. But on what grounds? And I would remind everyone, including those activist judges, but they're probably not listening to this show, where in the Constitution is marriage mentioned? That would therefore make any laws that a state sets up unconstitutional. It is just total leftist, activist BS. Now, to go back to the First Amendment. First Amendment says the government has no place in religious matters. Let's interpret it that way. Very simple. Marriage is a religious sacrament. So, government has no place in legislating or doing anything with marriage. Now, that's a fairly controversial statement in of itself. But what I would say is the following. I don't understand why the regressives, who've been trying for years to turn us into a Euro-socialist, as they see Valhalla, and as I will tell you, nightmare, why they don't press for something that is pretty standard across the Atlantic. Civil unions. These are partnerships that have the full legal force of law that we know today. So once you have a civil union, you have all the normal things of a partner. Wills, succession, ability to take decisions on people's behalf, and I have no problem with that. In that respect, I'm very libertarian. If people want to live together and they love each other, the Bible may say it's wrong, but if they're going to live together as a happy couple, good for them. So give them a civil union. Why do they have to have a marriage? Why do we have to call it a marriage per se? Now, in many countries on the other side of the Atlantic, in the Euro-socialist hell, you actually have two ceremonies. One of the registrars, a civil ceremony, and then if you are religious, if you're church-going, you can go to church and have your partnership cemented by your religious beliefs. Right, by a religious ceremony. From a legal point of view, in those countries, only the civil ceremony actually carries weight, so the religious one doesn't. Now, there are some countries, like the UK, where the clergy are, and I use the word deputized, if you want to call it that, to represent the government, and the civil and church ceremony can be combined. But for those of you that are atheists or don't want to recognize the church ceremony, a registrar's office ceremony can provide the legal partnership for which many strive. And if at a later date you want to have a church ceremony, you can often do that as well. So, I would say if the local, state, or even national law is written, maybe we get a federal law, would have to be a constitutional amendment, I would think, that's written and passed that allows civil unions to occur between same-sex couples, so be it. Again, like I said, I'm libertarian. If it's not going to hurt me, I don't care. It's unfortunate for them. They're not living according to the Bible, but that's their choice, right? I would say the religious fanatics who feel this is against the Bible, they can rest easy because these couples aren't really married as defined by the Bible, but for the same-sex couples, they're granted the same legal rights as traditional couples. To me, it's a win-win situation. Yes, yet the LBGT, XYZ, Q, whatever, radicals seem to be unprepared to accept this as a compromise, which is unfortunate. Okay, folks, I think it is time for the second commercial break, so stick with me and we'll move on to... I've got one more little thing about this topic before we move on to another topic as part of the commentary. So stick with me, folks.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Boy, man, I had a rough night's sleep. Boy, I got a letter from the IRS yesterday, and I just couldn't sleep. Man, I'm dying here. Somebody help me.
IRS problems affect more than just your finances. If you're ready to take back control of your life and you owe more than $10,000, you need to call the Tax Doctor. Their expert staff can immediately protect you from the IRS and state collectors and get you the best possible tax settlement guaranteed. The IRS has recently released new programs geared in helping struggling taxpayers, where you may qualify to settle your tax debt and wipe out up to 85% or more of what you currently owe. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, call the Tax Doctor right now. See if you qualify to pay less. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. Again, 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thank you for sticking with me through that break. We're into the second half of the show. Hope you guys that are listening are having fun, whether you're listening live, whether you're listening to the recordings that are available at archives.patrickcomelately.us, or whether you're listening via Red State Talk Radio Network, the network full of very interesting conservative talk show hosts. Very proud to be part of that. And we were talking about gay partnerships, gay marriage, and I think I've thrown out some ideas that should be acceptable to all, but we see that people on the extreme ends of the scale, on both sides to a certain extent, but I think more so on the LBGT than on the extreme religious side, don't want to accept the solution of civil unions. Now, I was talking about Red State Talk Radio. Oh, and before we move on, I do want to say, if you like the show, please do tell your friends about it. They can listen live. If you're listening live, you know where to find it. If you're listening to the recordings, you know where to find it. And also, as I said, tell people they can also catch it on Red State Talk Radio, redstatetalkradio.com. It's broadcast, I think, 3 or 4 times a week. Look at the schedule to find out exactly when. And of course, there are also some normal radio stations that rebroadcast the Red State Talk Radio feed, so you may be able to catch it over the air on your little transistor radio or on your car radio or whatever. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I will shortly, I think next week, be able to give some details about another network that will be carrying this broadcast. So, yes, tell your friends, please. The more the merrier. And we need to get these messages out as much as possible. It's only 2 weeks the election, so there's not a lot of messages to get out anymore, but we also have to think about 2016. Really have to make sure that Hitlery doesn't get in. And hopefully I can contribute towards that. So we were talking, as I said, about civil unions, gay marriage, etc. And one of the hosts on Red State Talk Radio is a lady called Terry O'Brien, and she has a lot of very interesting, insightful posts in different places. So if you Twitter, follow her on Twitter. Terry O'Brien is her handle. Look her up on Facebook. Google her, because she has some interesting things to say. And one, I found a very piece of interesting information from her. She was also making some comments about gay marriage. And in her post, she said, "Here's the real kicker. The Supreme Court has actually already ruled on the constitutionality of so-called same-sex marriage and the right of states to prohibit it. It did so back in 1972 in a case called Baker versus Nelson, a case from Minnesota, in which 2 men were denied a marriage license in Hennepin County, Minneapolis. The Minnesota Supreme Court, in an opinion that seemed to just barely avoid saying, 'You cannot be serious,' said that the Constitution does not provide any fundamental right for 2 men to get married." I'll expand that. The Constitution does not provide any fundamental right for any 2 people to get married, whether they're 2 men, 2 women, a man and a woman, a man and a dog, a man and a cow, or a woman and herself. And you may laugh at some of those latter ones, but those do actually go on in Europe, where they are now a lot. They've basically said, well, anybody can get married to anything, and you'd be surprised. I think kind of the most strange one is indeed the woman who married herself. Talk about narcissism. Anyway, and the U.S. Supreme Court upheld that decision with an order consisting of the phrase, "Appeal from Superior Court, Minnesota, dismissed for want of a substantial federal question." End of story. Now, of course, we know since then the Supreme Court has capitulated to the pressure from the regressives and the gay fascists. And now they've said that lower court judges can violate the rights of states and overrule them, which is totally wrong. But anyway, and I agree with Terry. She said one thing at the end of the post. She said, even if you are a supporter of so-called same-sex marriage, you should be extremely concerned about living in a post-constitutional time where there's a lawless occupant of the Oval Office gleefully wielding his pen and phone to do whatever he pleases, and courts apparently willing to do whatever it takes to get the result that they think is fair. They are not applying the law as it should be interpreted, because that is supposed to be their role. No, they are interpreting it as they think they would like, which is not supposed to be what they're doing. So when legal matters are decided by that standard, rather by legal procedure and rules applied without regard to outcome, we have tyranny in black robes. The rule of man, not the rule of law. And we only need to look to history to see where that leads. And it doesn't lead to anything good. So, and let's see what Ronnie has something to say on that.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Exactly, and that, I think, is really the best description, because, you know, the Constitution is being corrupted. Okay, more on the weekly commentary. I think we might fill up the show with it tonight, but there are a couple of topics I want to get to, so let's rush through this. The elections are coming up, and I'm worried. I'm actually rather frightened. Earlier this week, King Barry came out with a very surprising statement. It's kind of the second one that he's come out recently. Previously, he'd said that his policies would be voted upon in the midterms. So he basically said, you know, it's not so much about the people, but it's about my policies. And I don't think the GOP jumped enough on that, although there have been some commercials where that's been quoted. I think they should have made a lot more hay out of that. But, of course, now you look around and the Democrats seem to be avoiding him like the plague if they're up for election. And he was asked a question about this, I think it was on Al Sharpton's show. And he stated, actually, that he wasn't offended. Well, I don't believe that, because he's such a narcissist. Probably really does PO him. But he said they need to do what they need to do to get elected. So if that means not using him, not being seen with him, so be it. But then he came out with the statement, which really surprised me. And this one I really hope that the GOP pounce upon and use, especially in those tight races. He said, because in the end it does not matter, because they will vote for his policies, whatever. Now, in a lot of cases, people are saying, I can think of, for example, Alison Grimes in Kentucky, Shaheen in New Hampshire, saying, no, we're independent people. We vote as we want to vote. And they're lying through their teeth, and we know that because the Alison Grimes campaign already let slip that they will lie to get elected, and afterwards they will do what they want, right? Which basically means vote lockstep with whatever Dingy Harry and King Barry say. But I'm scared, and the reason I'm scared is that someone who ran such strategic campaigns in 2008 and 2012, where every single word was absolutely correct, he hardly made any mistakes, and the few he made, like saying, you know, he'd visited 57 states and he had 3 more to go, were very quickly hidden by the lamestream media. But it looks as if he's making some very stupid, simple errors. And I don't think these were errors. I think that he knows more than we know. And I said this before the 2008 campaign, when we sort of thought, look, he'd done such a bad job in the first 4 years, there's no way he could get in again. And he did. And how did he get in? Stolen election. Look at Al Franken getting in and beating the Republican there. And it turns out thousands of votes were from convicted felons, who are not supposed to vote, and yet that election was not overturned. So I think he knows more than we know, and an important part of that is that he knows the Democratic Party has already put things in place to steal the election. Yep, that's what I think is going to happen. There are already stories about voting machines in Cook County, Illinois, which is the corruption capital of America, where a Republican candidate was trying to select himself in early voting, and the machine kept on flipping to his opponent of the Democratic Party. The same happened when this person then went down the rest of the ticket and tried to vote for other Republican candidates in other races. And it kept flipping his vote to the Democratic persons. Now, when he brought this to the attention of the voting place judge, it was attributed to miscalibration of the machine, and the machine was, in inverted commas, in quotes, taken out of use. Yeah, right. So the lesson here to all voters, please check closely if you're voting by machine, and make sure that when you press something, that result is being captured if you can see it. Now, of course, this does not cover any skullduggery that goes on inside the machine, and believe me, I'm sure that happens as well. And that's very difficult to trace. I wish that we could insist on a paper trail, which basically means, yes, you can vote by machine, but it prints out a piece of paper, which you then take and then deposit in a box where it's kept for later review in case there's any dispute about the votes. And at the same time, you can look at the piece of paper and say, did this actually capture what I entered into the machine? And if not, you can have your vote voided and you can re-vote. I know the Democrats will be against that because I'm sure that they do fiddle with the machines. But anyway, but that would really, I think, be the best thing that we could do. That would be the best way to try and stop some of this going on. Another issue about stealing the election is that the regressives have been making very serious plans to take over red states. Colorado is a good example, and now a movie's been made about it. If you see it in your theaters, go see a movie called Rocky Mountain Heist. I saw it previewed on TV today, and if you go and see it, you will be very scared. It shows exactly how a small group of people, only 4 at the center of this group, of very rich regressives, executed a plan to turn Colorado blue. It's hosted by Michelle Malkin and produced by Citizens United. Not only does it show how they executed that plan, it also explains how they're going to use that plan and repeat it across the country, focusing initially on places like Texas, Virginia, and Florida, that they want to have because of their large number of electors in the presidential elections. Very frightening movie, but do go and see it. You can see what's up there, and hopefully it will, sunlight is the best disinfectant. If we can get this out to the general public, people will see what's going on. We might be able to help stop it. Okay, time for the last commercial break, folks, and then we'll be back into the last segment.
Reporting from the eye of the storm. This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again. I'm predicting this storm front is heading your way, so call Basement Systems and relax.
Call 800-205-8665 for your free in-home inspection, or visit
Oops, commercial ended a little early there, but that gives me more time to talk on my last topic. So I've ended the weekly commentary, and I do want to play one quick thing here before I get into the next topic.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
And what I wanted to talk about, and this is perhaps somebody who's fighting for freedom, a controversial owner has declared her store a Muslim-free zone. Now, interesting. Will she be able to get away with that? Or is the Department of Injustice going to come down on her like a ton of bricks? Now, most of us will agree the Western world is at war with radical Islam. But not all Muslims are radical. And most politicians, really say to us, we've got to remember Islam is a religion of peace. But we have to remember there's also a very large number of people that practice a brand of Islam that is committed to violence. And if we deny this, we're just denying the realities of the world. Not all Muslims are violent and shouldn't be treated as such. However, one store, the Gun Cave Indoor Shooting Range in Hot Springs, Arkansas, has declared itself a Muslim-free zone, citing safety concerns and an extensive history of violent actions taken by Muslims in the U.S. and abroad. A very brave lady, range owner Jan, posted on her website a 10-point explanation. I just want to run through that quickly. Now, before I do that, many might say, well, this is a very extreme policy. It should be noted, the establishment appears to serve as a private establishment. So you would say a business person has the right to do what they want. But of course, the Department of Injustice isn't going to look at it that way. Now, Jan says the ATF has asked her in the past to exercise judgment in refusing service to people who she feels might be unstable or a threat in general. Remember, she's subject to the ATF because she is a gun range. She sells, rents, and has people practicing with guns. And Jan Morgan says this broad leeway offers her the authority to deny service broadly to Muslims. And so that's very interesting. So here. Let's see if I got time. Here are the 10-point reasoning. She says the Quran, which I have read and studied thoroughly, and to which all Muslims align, contains 109 verses commanding hate, murder, and terror against all human beings who refuse to submit or convert to Islam. My life has been threatened repeatedly by Muslims who are angry that I've studied their Quran. The barbaric act of beheading an innocent American in Oklahoma was by a Muslim. The Boston bombings were by Muslims. The Fort Hood mass shooting was a Muslim. The murder of 3,000 innocent people were Muslims. These are all things that happened in the U.S., another reason to feel worried. The nature of my business involves firearms and shooting firearms in a closed environment. My patrons are not comfortable being around Muslims who align themselves with a religion that clearly commands hate, murder, and violence. My range rents and sells guns to my patrons. Why would I want to rent or sell a gun and hand ammunition to someone who aligns himself with a religion that commands him to kill me? Muslims who belong to and or support ISIS are threatening to kill innocent Americans. Muslims who belong or support Al-Qaeda are threatening to kill innocent Americans. Muslims who belong or support Hamas are threatening to kill innocent Americans. See a common thread? And she goes on with a number of other things which I won't have time for, but basically says ATF have told her that, yes, she must be careful about who she provides guns to, and she feels that providing guns to Muslims is not required. So, folks, we've reached the end of yet another show. Want to thank you for coming. Do join us next week. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come-Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.